Hello and welcome back to Stoic Happens channel. Have you ever felt deeply unsure about what it truly means to be human? Unlike any other creature, we're born with a question mark inside us, spending a lifetime searching for answers. But no one ever gives us a clear guide. If you've ever felt lost, despite doing all the right things, or wondered who you really are beneath the roles and expectations, you're not alone. Today, let's explore why being human is not a given, but a practice, an ongoing journey of choices, mistakes, and moments of presence. If you're ready to stop pretending and start living authentically, this conversation is for you. Humans, the only species that has to learn how to be human. Hello again, friends. We're back here to face yet another truth that lives quietly inside each of us. The truth that we don't actually know what it means to be human. A cat doesn't need to learn how to be a cat. It doesn't need to meditate in the morning to ask itself whether it's living in alignment with its true feline nature. It doesn't have a midlife identity crisis. A fish doesn't float in the middle of the ocean, overcome with existential dread, whispering, "Who am I and where am I swimming?" An oak tree doesn't compare itself to a maple. It simply grows the way it's meant to grow. No one judges it. No one expects it to drop its leaves in an aesthetically pleasing way or break its branches poetically for the sake of engagement. But humans, we're a special case. We are the only species born with a question mark embedded in our minds, spending a lifetime searching for the answer through every possible form, from religious scriptures to self-help apps to TikTok videos. From a young age, no one teaches us how to truly live as a human being. They teach us to spell, to calculate the area of a trapezoid, to distinguish adjectives from adverbs. But no one ever sits us down and clearly explains what it means to be human. So we fumble, we imitate, we try to act like adults, like celebrities, like the crowd. And sometimes one late night after an argument or a failure, we find ourselves staring at the ceiling, wondering, who am I in all this that I'm doing? And that right there is the most fundamental loneliness of being human. Not because we aren't loved, but because we're not sure if we're truly living as ourselves. We are the only species that doesn't know what it's supposed to become. We don't know what our purpose is. We don't know whether being kind is truly worth it, or if it just makes us easy to exploit. We are the only species that has to invent itself without an instruction manual. That makes us special, but it also makes us miserable. And that right there is the story of this essay. A piece for those who've ever felt endlessly busy, but unsure what they're busy for. For those who've done all the right things, but still feel empty. For those who want to live meaningfully, but don't know where to begin. And for those who are simply curious enough to ask, what does it mean to be human if being born human still isn't enough? 1. Humans, the unfinished species. If you've ever sat through a 3-hour company meeting just to decide on the shade of a new logo and still didn't reach a conclusion, congratulations, you've witnessed living proof that humans are an unfinished species. Even monkeys know when to stop. But us, we just keep going, arguing to prove we understand color theory and brand identity while silently fantasizing about lunch. Not because we're stupid, but because we're lost. Humans aren't like other animals. A newborn horse can stand up within minutes and run within hours. A human baby takes nearly a year just to roll over, 2 years to run, and 20 years to file taxes, sometimes more. We're born fragile, dependent, and most importantly, vague. We don't know who we are, what we're here for, or what separates us from that smart coffee machine that sometimes speaks better English than we do. The psychologist Erich Fromm once said that humans are an unfinished species. He didn't say it with disdain, but with a touch of compassion and a great deal of observation. From the beginning, we don't function on instinct. We learn to live by imitation. When we see adults scream when the Wi-Fi goes down, we learn that losing signal is a catastrophe. When they frown because we spill water, we understand that dropping things is bad. And just like that, we learn to live as a copy of others, rarely stopping to ask, is the original even doing okay? If you've ever heard the story of the ugly duckling, then you already get the general feeling. The duckling wasn't ugly. It just wasn't a duck. It was a swan. But living among ducks, it thought something was wrong with itself. Similarly, humans often feel something's off because they're not living in alignment with their true nature. But unlike swans, we don't grow long necks and beautiful white feathers in spring to reveal the truth. We wrestle with that sense of not belonging inside our heads for decades. Once I saw a boy about 10 years old ask his mother if he was still normal, even if he wasn't good at math. Didn't like football and wasn't fond of either cats or dogs. The mother didn't answer right away. She looked at him and asked, "So what do you like?" He said, "I like watching the rain fall and drawing it with a pencil." And you know what? I've never seen a smile as relieved and astonished as the one on that mother's face. She didn't need her son to become anyone. She just needed to know he was still himself. But sadly, not everyone is lucky enough to have someone help them see that. Many people grow up never knowing what they actually like. They only know what pleases others. So they live to be accepted, but never feel like they truly belong. No map, no user manual, no inner voice loud enough to guide them. That's why humans are an unfinished species. Not because we lack something, but because we've been given so many possibilities, we don't know where to begin. And when we don't use our abilities to find ourselves, we end up using them for everything else. Like arguing on the internet, or comparing ourselves to people on Instagram, or posting angry comments under cooking videos just because they added a bit too much salt. All of it is an unconscious attempt to feel like we are someone. But you know what? If you've ever started to wonder whether what you're doing truly feels like you, then you're already ahead of 80% of the population. Because most people never pause to ask that. They just keep going, doing more, doing forever, and still feeling empty inside. 2. Being human is not a status. It's a practice. No one gets to be fully human just by being born that way. If that were true, the world would be a much kinder place. But clearly it isn't. Being human is not something we are. It's something we become slowly, clumsily, painfully, and sometimes beautifully through choices, questions, and a whole lot of mistakes. You can be a human and still live like a machine. You can follow every rule, meet every deadline, show up to every meeting, and still feel like you're running on autopilot. You can be productive, successful, even admired, and still secretly wonder if there's something essential missing. Something real, something alive. That's because being human isn't about being efficient. It's about being aware. It's not about having power. It's about having presence. It's not about how much you can get done, but how much of yourself you can bring to what you do. The Stoics understood this better than most. They believed that to be truly human is to live according to your nature, not your habits, not your conditioning, not your fears. To act with reason, with courage, with compassion. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, "Do more." He said, "Ask yourself at every moment, is this necessary?" Epictetus didn't urge us to chase success. He told us to take care of our minds because that's the only part of us truly under our control. But how often do we remember that? How often do we pause long enough to even ask what being human means to us, not in theory, not as a hashtag, but in the way we live, speak, and show up in the world? The truth is, most of us are just trying to get through the day without burning out, breaking down, or losing it on some poor delivery guy who forgot the sauce. That's not a failure. That's just being human, too. But maybe, just maybe, there's another way. Maybe being human starts not with grand gestures, but with small awareness. Like noticing when we're judging someone too quickly. Like catching ourselves when we're on the verge of complaining about something that doesn't actually matter. Like forgiving ourselves for being clumsy, confused, or just tired. Maybe the first step to becoming more human is to stop pretending we already are. 3. Religion and the aspiration to rise above instinct. If you've ever eaten far too much at a buffet and then stood there wondering why on earth you kept going after plate number 3, even though you were clearly full, congratulations. You've just experienced a minor skirmish between instinct and awareness. Instinct told you to keep eating because free food is rare and sacred. Awareness gently whispered that your genes might not forgive you for this betrayal. That tug of war is exactly what religion has been watching for thousands of years and giving different names to. Greed, anger, delusion, ego, the self, the inner demon, depending on the flavor. Religion didn't show up to make your life harder, although admittedly it sometimes does. But beneath the surface, most religions share a deep intuition that humans are not just talking sacks of flesh with credit cards. Inside each of us, there's something sacred, a spark, a glimmer, a part of us that doesn't belong to the material world. And our task isn't just to live. It's to live in a way that honors that spark. If you look at most major religious traditions, you'll find some version of an upward journey, from innocent child to ethical adult, from sinner to awakened soul, from mere mortal to saint. And along that journey, you're expected to overcome your selfish ego, your midnight cravings, and sometimes even the impulse to clap back at an offensive comment on the internet. Not easy, but deeply meaningful. Confucianism speaks of self-cultivation. Before governing a nation or bringing peace to the world, you've got to be able to sit down and have an honest conversation with yourself, to know why you're angry, why you're happy, and whether you're truly living in accordance with what's right. Christianity emphasizes love and repentance. Everyone sins, but everyone can be forgiven if they have the humility to ask. Buddhism goes a bit deeper. It simply says life is suffering, but you don't have to backstroke in your suffering forever if you learn to observe it instead of react to it. Islam and the Sufi tradition refer to the internal battle as the greatest jihad, not against others, but against yourself. They're all pointing to the same thing, that humans are born unfinished. But we have the potential to rise above that. Not through tools, not through power, but through will and compassion. Through listening to that small, quiet voice inside that's so often drowned out by phone notifications and late afternoon stomach growls. If you've ever tried meditating, even for just a minute, you'll know your mind is more like a bustling street market than a calm retreat. Thoughts jumping around like monkeys, emotions rushing past like motorbikes at rush hour. And in the middle of all that noise, there's you, small, still, watching it all, doing nothing. That is the beginning of every spiritual path, not seeing some divine light, but realizing that deep inside there's a place of stillness that never left you. You just forgot to visit. The interesting part, most religions don't say you need to climb into the heavens to meet God. They say turn inward, sit down, look honestly at yourself, and have a conversation with the most sacred part of you in the most human way possible through honesty. So even if you don't follow any religion, that's okay. What matters is that you can still practice the one thing all religions quietly suggest: live each day as if something mattered more than temporary pleasure. Choose to resist a harmful reaction simply because you want to be kind. Choose to forgive instead of retaliate, Choose silence over saying something that would hurt someone, even when you know you could win the argument. That's not imposed morality. That's what it looks like when a human lives beyond instinct. And perhaps in those quiet moments, you're not just doing something good. You're doing something rare. You're being human. 4. Stoicism. To be human is to live by reason and virtue. If you've ever seriously considered slapping someone in a meeting, but instead chose to smile and sip your water, congratulations. You've just acted almost exactly like a Stoic philosopher. They don't tell you not to get angry. They just suggest you don't let your anger be the one making decisions for you. In a world where everyone's shouting, "Follow your feelings," Stoicism is like the quiet old uncle standing outside the party, gently reminding you that reason still deserves a seat at the table of life, even if it's not the life of the party. Stoicism is not a dry philosophy. It's a user manual for being human, written 2,000 years ago by people who lived close to power but chose to live closer to the truth. They didn't care how much money you made or how many followers you had. They only cared about one thing. Can you control yourself? Because if you can't master yourself, then no kind of power on earth can save you from you. They divided everything in life into two neat categories: what's within your control and what isn't. The weather, not in your control. Other people's opinions, not in your control. Your health, not entirely in your control. But your actions and your choices, now we're talking. That's the one thing you do own. And so they said, focus on that. Because no matter how much you worry, scream, or sulk, the rest won't bend to your will. It will rain anyway. People still won't like you. And the deadline remains as emotionally unavailable as ever. Marcus Aurelius was an emperor, possibly the only ruler in history who kept a journal of personal philosophy instead of political manifestos. Every night he asked himself whether he had lived rightly, whether he had been kind, whether he had let anger overpower his reason, and most importantly, whether he had lived as a human being, not as an emperor, not as a symbol, just a human. He once wrote something I think every office worker on the planet can relate to. He said that when a thing is made to do something, and it refuses to do it, it loses its essence. A knife that doesn't cut, an eye that doesn't see. They've lost their nature. So if humans don't live by reason and virtue, what are we then? Just a mobile shell, a creature with Wi-Fi but no direction. Now, virtue in Stoicism is not about rigid morality. It's simply choosing to live in a way that's true to your rational nature and inner dignity. No deceit, no flattery, no betraying yourself just to win someone over. Sounds like a hard life, maybe. But the truth is, it's profoundly liberating. Because when you realize all you have to control is your own actions and keep those actions clean, you don't have to fear anyone. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to construct a version of yourself for the world. You don't have to edit your soul for public approval. You just do what's right. And let the world spin on. Stoics don't run away from life. They live right in the middle of it. Some were slaves like Epictetus. Some were emperors like Marcus. But what they all had in common was this: every single day they returned to one question. Have I lived as a human today? Did I let anger drag me off course? Did I say something unnecessarily cruel? Did I do something just for pride and not because it was right? And if the answer was yes, then I'll do better tomorrow. So if you've ever wondered how to truly live like a human being, Stoicism has a simple answer. Live by reason. Control yourself and do the right thing even when no one's watching, because you're not here to perform. You're here to become, and no one else can do that for you. 5. Coming home to yourself. A journey with no map. Not all of us have ever been lost in a forest, but almost everyone has at some point been lost within themselves. That strange feeling of not knowing what you truly want, not knowing what genuinely makes you happy, not knowing why, even after trying so hard, your heart still feels empty. It is not loud. It is not like the pain of loss or the sting of betrayal. It is quiet, like a thin mist that settles gently over your life. No one else sees it, but you feel it. Maybe you have felt that way one evening after work, when crowds are squeezing onto buses, when texts keep coming in, meetings still happen, laughter still echoes. But you are sitting there quietly asking yourself who you are really living for. That is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are awake. Because most of the time, we live as if everything is crystal clear. The schedule is clear, the goals are clear, the plans are clear, but we are not. Many people spend their entire lives chasing something out there, only to discover that what they truly needed was a return inward, not to abandon the world, but to understand who they are within it. No one teaches us how to come home to ourselves. There is no course, no GPS, no step-by-step tutorial, because only you know how far you have wandered, and only you will know how to make your way back. For some people, the journey begins with meditation. For others, it begins with writing their truest thoughts without fear of being read. For some, it starts with the courage to say no, to admit they are tired, that they are not okay, that they need to rest. And for others, it starts by giving up the exhausting effort to be someone worthy of love and choosing instead to love who they already are. The path back is not a race. There is no finish line, no trophy waiting at the end. But there is one thing that becomes clearer with each step. You begin to feel lighter, not because life gets easier, but because you are no longer carrying the weight of being someone else. You begin to accept that there are parts of you that are messy, unimpressive, unpolished, but real and worthy of love. The greatest freedom is not being able to go anywhere. It is being able to stay with yourself and feel no shame, to sit alone and not feel empty, to face your sadness without needing to chase it away. Because you know it too is part of you, and you no longer need to run. So if you are in a foggy season right now, please do not rush to find the answers. Start instead with a gentle question. Are you okay? Are you tired? Are you living like the person you want to become? And if the answer is no, that is all right. No one is ever late on the journey back to themselves. You only need to begin. And if you do not know where to begin, try doing this each morning, before the momentum of the day pulls you in. Sit still for 1 minute. Place your hand over your chest. Close your eyes. And quietly ask what you need today to feel truly alive. Not successful, not admired, but alive. Because you deserve to live as yourself. And the moment you accept that you are already living as a human being. Before I finish, I want to say a few last things. As a small summary, a bit of encouragement, and a quiet note in case you feel this piece is worth sharing. We live in an age where giving up is easier than ever. You can quit your job with a single email, drop out of school with one click, unfollow someone with a swipe of your thumb. But there is one thing you cannot quit, no matter how hard you try: yourself. No matter how far you run or how long you pretend not to care, you are still there. Patient, quiet, waiting to be seen again. Being human has never been a simple task. There is no standard textbook. No one truly graduates with perfect marks. Every person is clumsy, has made mistakes, has done something they regret when they think back. And yet every person also holds the ability to begin again. Right here, right now, with nothing more than a small shift in how they see themselves. You do not need to become a philosopher. You do not need to read every book by Marcus or meditate for 10 hours a day. You only need enough courage to be honest, enough patience to observe, enough gentleness to forgive, and enough resolve to live today just a little better than yesterday. Just a little. That already counts as a victory no one else may see. But you will know. Maybe you are still feeling lost, still unsure of who you are, still spinning inside a noisy world. That is okay, truly. As long as you keep asking, keep searching, keep living with a sincere desire to become a true human being, then you are already ahead of more people than you think. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is right, do it. If it is true, say it." I cannot promise this writing is the ultimate truth, but I know it is the truest thing I can offer you at this moment. And if it touches something inside you, then hold on to that. You do not need to remember every word. Just remember this one thing. You do not need to be perfect to be worthy. You only need to be real. And if you think this piece might speak to someone else who is also stumbling along the path of becoming human, then please share it. Simply because we are not alone. And we should not have to feel lost while searching for the truest thing in this life. See you again in the next videos as we continue to walk together on this journey of conquering ourselves. If this journey into Stoic honesty resonates with you, let us keep the conversation going. Like and share this content to spread the wisdom of Stoicism with others. Subscribe to Stoic Happens for more insights on living a courageous, authentic life. We would love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and share how honesty has shaped your path or what you are reflecting on today. Your perspective could inspire someone else in our community.